Hey, it's Soul with another video. A while back I talked about raid buffs and what each class would be bringing to the table in the upcoming Battle for Azeroth expansion. This information is not new, but today I'm going to bring you up to speed in case you haven't been caught up. Previously, we were under the impression that each class would bring a specific thing to the team in the form of a passive buff or a debuff. It seemed like every class would have its day in the sun. Well, that day is over. Here's what we do have at the moment. First are the primary stat buffs, which last for 1 hour. Warriors will bring Battle Shout, which increases strength and agility by 10%. Mages have Arcane Intellect, increasing intelligence by 10%. And priests have Power Word Fortitude, increasing stamina by 10%. The primary stat buffs can also be provided via consumables just like in previous expansions. The buff is weaker, but at least you have something available. For debuffs, monks bring Mystic Touch, which makes all damage increase physical damage taken by 5%, and this lasts for 1 minute. Demon Hunters will apply Chaos Brand to targets that receive fire or chaos damage, and this increases magic damage taken by 5% for 1 minute. As far as I've looked, there's no other equivalent or alternative that provides debuffs, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, it's kind of a far cry from what we had before, so let's unpack this one. Early in Biffa's development, there was an expectation that every class would receive their own unique group buff. I'd wager that between the existing utility between the classes that it wasn't necessary to force passive group buffs onto every class just because. It's sort of interesting and sort of suspicious that the old holy trinity of classes are the only ones with primary stat buffs. Meanwhile, the two newest classes get the debuff. It's debatable, but I'm willing to argue that it's because those two classes don't bring the same level of utility as, say, a druid or a paladin, classes that also don't have those debuffs or buffs. Let's dial this back a little bit though. These passives aren't what I would say as essential to success in dungeons or raids up to a certain level. At no point am I going to come to a conclusion where the classes outside of these 5 don't matter, because there's a lot more utility to consider that each class brings to the table. Here's where I think these buffs will affect group building in the near future. For mythic and otherwise competitive raiders, it'll affect groups, but at this level, and considering there's 20 roles to fill, it's almost a given that these buffs and debuffs will be available. Personally, I don't think that this is going to affect dungeon groups at a high level. I see dungeons, even high-level dungeons, as more of a test of active utility like a stampeding roar or a silence or a stun. Having more HP and throughput is nice, but it's not as critical as just knowing what you're doing in a dungeon. Groups are more likely to look for a bloodlust than some extra stats. With little doubt though, these buffs will have a big impact on raid pugs regardless of skill level. Pug raid leaders will probably feel required to fill out their groups with all the bells and whistles that'll make a group, if nothing else, look organized. Raiders who typically pug might have a slightly better chance of an invite if they happen to be one of these buff-based classes. That's pretty much all there is for buffs and debuffs in the Battle for Azeroth, so what do you think? Is it going to be critical for your group to have all this added utility? What could you go without? And how do you feel if your class is or isn't included with these additions? Please, if this video was useful, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell thing over there. A big thanks to the patrons who've helped keep me up so I can bring you more of this and all things Warcraft. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.